the Luminous Possibilities podcast. We offer a diversity of perspectives from many fields of medicine, esoteric and ancient wisdom, and subtle energy, arts, and sciences. Find deeply fulfilling pathways for co-creating yourself, life, and human communities around you. Find inspiring attunements to your own optimal living roadmap, true authentic self, and the most radiant frequency for living life to the fullest. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Luminous Possibilities podcast. I'm your co-host, Keenan White, and I'm here today with Jyoti, your living luminous advocate. She is a dear friend of mine and just has been a remarkable inspiration and light in my world. And so I'm really excited to do some kind of black hole diving with you. I feel like we get to do, usually touching in on the big existential pieces of life, and at least that's how I've been enjoying connecting to you. So how would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, the title Living Luminous or Luminous Living Advocate is something that came to me some time ago. I can describe myself as a yogi, a meditator, an explorer of consciousness and practices that promote self-mastery.
Perfect. I love it. So with self-mastery, I mean, it's such a huge subject. It's something I'm definitely interested in. How did you, was there a point in your life where you started to think like, okay, this is what I want to focus on?
No, that this whole notion of self-mastery is something that I just recently came to realize that that's what I've been doing all my life. When I look back in my life and I look at when I was a dancer, it was the mastery of the body. And then that moved into yoga pretty quickly. My interest switched over to yoga because I was always interested in spirituality, and growing up Catholic, that really didn't do it for me. So I started studying world religions, and then when I found yoga, I was like, well, yoga is the body and it's the mind and it's the spirit all together. So that was the beginning of, I guess, my interest in self-mastery.
Amazing. Yeah, there seems to me so far in my life that there's not a whole lot of paths that really encapsulate so many aspects of integrating the mind, the body, the emotions, the spirit, other than yoga. There's been times where, I started off in a meditative practice and it sort of led me to yoga. And then I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to be just sitting and meditating and transcending reality all day. Well, how do I live in the world? How do I bring maybe what I've realized and what I've been experiencing and practicing into like a lived form? And then I went off and I did some body work and I got into astrology and some other things. And then it just came back to yoga. It was like, but there's really like this system, the branches from it are they're just remarkable. I mean, it's incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Self-knowledge, and not the small self and the big self, both, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say self-mastery, is that what you mean?
Well, self-mastery is, that's a great question. Well, I think it's impossible to master the self with a capital S, because we're already that. So it's more about the process. I think part of the self-mastery is the process of realizing and of understanding that that's that the essence of who we are. And then there's the kind of unique individual that we are, and how we, what that evolution, what that process is to master the body and the breath and the mind and the emotions and the thoughts. And so,
yeah, perhaps there's a level of mastery that I can see with the body, with the breath, with the mind, and almost having this appropriate place for this center of like what's steering the ship. And I oftentimes refer to that as the emperor being the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And if the mind is in that seat, then it gets tricky. And really the mind is more like a knight,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more of a tool. And the more that we can see that, I feel like the mind takes its rightful place. But even in this like relative world of the personality, it seems that part of that self-mastery is perhaps that realization you're pointing to around this idea that we already are who we are. There's no, in some ways it's not like we're necessarily getting somewhere. So there's something interesting I've been kind of just reflecting on lately around growth. Because there's so much personal development and this growth mindset, and that's beautiful. And sometimes I think it can be misleading because it's like we're getting somewhere. This idea of like, if I keep doing this, then I'm going to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's some fallacy in that.
Yeah, well, there is, it's like, it's the paradox of, I love this quote by a spiritual teacher called Adyashanti. And the quote is something like, I probably don't have the exact quote, but it's always being, always becoming. And so it points to what we're talking about. We are utterly perfect in our essence of who we are. And yet there is this kind of inexplicable drive, in some more than others, to evolve or to grow or to change. And that's it's, I don't know, what life would be like if we didn't have some of that drive. I think it would be fairly uninteresting, but there's that's kind of exciting. That's how can we open our minds enough to realize that yes, there's possibilities, all possibilities are possible. How can we open our hearts to have such great compassion for ourselves and for each other. I think that there's, and certainly now this time is such an interesting time that we're in, that there's so much information coming out in so many different modalities and so many ways that we can continue to grow or evolve.
Yeah, it's kind of an amazing, almost like renaissance to me at this time, and yet we have this global pandemic going on. So there's this almost kind of like a shadow umbrella of a shadow. But really, I think what's happening in a lot of people's homes and what I've seen and people I've talked to is like people are really loving life. And I see so many people lit up with joy around doing things in their lives that really reflect who they are and their authenticity. And I know that that's what's deeply inspiring in my life, is like seeing that and then also living more into that. Yeah, where can we go from there? So many possibilities. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to finally drop and relax, drop the I'm getting somewhere thing, and drop into the I am who I am and I am who I'm becoming. And I think I said something interesting to a friend.
I am who I'm becoming. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, this guy who said, he's like, "What's going on with you?" And I'm just chatting. And he's like, I think I'm really sinking into this, just like more of who I am. He's like, yeah, that path, that just it's like you're heading towards yourself, but you've always already been there.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how simple things can be on any spiritual journey. I guess I consider myself somewhat of a seeker, in a certain sense, but there's a certain point I think where the seeker becomes maybe the seer, or the seeking seizes, and the thing that's sought, maybe it's some holy grail of some kinds, is eventually, it's like the back of your own head.
Yeah. It's and it can be, I think that can be tricky too. The seeker, I certainly had that so strong for so many years. And it was just this energy that was just unstoppable. And it caused me a great deal of challenges and suffering, quite frankly. And then when it started to fall away, it's such a relief, such a relief. And there's this, even talking about like this idea of self-mastery is, it can be tricky because I think that when I first started on what you would call a spiritual path, I was under the illusion that I was seeking some kind of perfection. And, so there is, and in this discovery of self-mastery, part of it is realizing my imperfection and just, and being, and embracing it and being okay with it. And that's part, and it sounds kind of strange, but I think that's been, at least for me personally, part of my growth of self-mastery, is seeing that I'm not perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes, and just allowing, much more room for the process of growth,
Mm-hmm.
or realization, or whatever word you want to use, but to make room for it, because it knows what it's doing with us.
Mm-hmm.
And this self with a capital S knows what it's doing, and so it's just a matter of trusting that, and just getting on page with how it wants to manifest.
Yeah. So it feels like a really nice segue, actually, the getting on the page for how the capital S self wants to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can take us back a little bit to, where you were before maybe you landed on that page, and what were some of the pages before that page that you were flipping. You mentioned to me about your studies in world religions,
Mm-hmm.
and then you came from a Catholic background, and then um, you got your master's in dance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd love to hear about that, because
Mm-hmm.
what a fun world to be playing in. And then it seems like that naturally led you to this yogic path.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if you were feeling like you were in that alignment with your higher self during the dance
Oh,
phase.
yeah, that's a great question. The dance, I just came in with it. Apparently, my mother said that, when I was less than 9 months, I was running around, and I guess that's pretty young to be on your feet running around. So I was always moving. So I had that was programmed into me somehow. And, and that became, and I was very actually quite shy and introspective when I was younger. And so dance really gave me an outlet for being able to express myself, because I could act, and I could play, and I could express myself in ways on stage that I couldn't express myself, in personal relationships or anything like that. So it was a big outlet for me.
It's a big
It was a
nonverbal
big, yes,
channel of expression.
yes, yeah, yeah. And I was always interested. I always knew that there was something bigger than me out there, and
Hmm.
couldn't really put my finger on it. And the way I gravitated towards it when I was younger was, I just would climb trees and watch the sunset, and that was in nature.
Nice.
Nature was my way of moving towards that which
Hmm.
was ineffable, but kind of something I could feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose for all of us, there's something innately, inherently present that is that higher self, and some of us call it God, or some of it, some of us call it the higher self, or the divine, or divinity, or I mean, there's so many names for maybe this higher intelligence, is what I'm calling it, the higher self. And I think we innately have that connection.
Yeah, so you're pointing to that, and I kind of finally kind of came around to maybe getting to that answer a little bit. That that is, that it's that the higher self is kind of gently just pushing and prodding us, and whispering to us, and I think it's always doing that for us, and it's just a matter of being able to tune into it, and it's still a learning process for me, and. Yeah, and I feel like it's showed up in so many different places, and even you talking about how yoga showed up, that it was very synchronistic, and I think that was just my higher self just tapping me on the shoulder, going, okay, this way, come with me this way.
So how do you feel you can really trust that? Because for people that may not be attuned to like these synchronous moments or that whisper from the higher self or this kind of nudge on the shoulder, and there's this questioning of like, why and what, and I don't know. And I know I've certainly been there. Is there something that you might offer in terms of tapping into that? I think what initially comes to mind for me is like that just allowing like the time and the space, and that word that I've heard you say so many times that's really landed in my system really well, and I thank you for that, is allowing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not about the doing.
No, yeah, and it's of course what I'm speaking is what I also need to hear too, and that allowing is so important. Giving yourself, exactly, like giving yourself the space, and I'm still learning how to do that, and I've been finding that just sitting quietly and asking questions, and specific questions, and waiting for a feeling to emerge can be helpful. And there's certainly so many tools of divinity that we can use, like cards, and looking at in the shamanic world, that we are always opening our senses to the environment. So you might look at you might be contemplating a question, and then notice what kind of an animal that you see, or notice different patterns of weather coming by as you're having a conversation with somebody about something that's really important to you. And so we're always receiving messages. We're getting messages from music. You're listening to a song on the radio in the car, and you're like, oh, something about that. Or you overhear a conversation. You probably had this experience wherein you're at a restaurant and you are talking. You're in a conversation with somebody, and then the conversation stops, and then all of a sudden you hear somebody having a conversation at another table. Like, not that you're eavesdropping, but it's just something that just kind of came in, and you're like, oh, that was for me. This is like the third time I heard Hawaii in a day. Oh, what is that trying to tell me? So that's there's so many different ways of playing with information, and playing with universe, and playing with a way to open up to this higher wisdom of who we are. And I think part of it is also just developing a relationship with it. Talking with it like your best friend, like, hey, you know what, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, and can you help me out? I feel really lost, and help, having a conversation, and maybe you can show me, this is the way you're gonna, this is, give me give me chills in my body when I know it's the right thing to do. Or there's ways of tapping in, and that's just been an ongoing investigation and exploration for me, is to listen from, not from my mind, but from spirit, or a higher wisdom that's within me. And even this, I think I told you, even coming to the podcast, like I had an idea. I was like, well, I think I want to talk about, something that I wrote about recently. And then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of sit and ask spirit and see what comes. And I ended up deciding to pull a card. And so it turned out to be something else. So opening, just being open to that information if you're asking for that. So opening to the information coming from a higher place within ourselves.
Yeah, or I suppose anywhere in a way. And I think the card you pulled was interconnectedness.
Yeah,
right?
interconnectedness.
So here we are, pretty much talking about that piece. And I remember, meditating for me when I first started was interesting, because, it was almost like I would leave my body, I would go into this mind. It was just almost pure consciousness. And when I started like stretching and moving my attention into my body, which is essentially yoga, I started to see like, whoa, there's like this living consciousness in my knee, or like in my hamstring. There's some anger here. There's some stuff, like there's messages and there's information in the body. And I really like that point you made. You were just raising about almost like asking, is it a chill in my body, or is there something my body can cue me with and almost establish that relationship with your body. Because
Mm.
to me, it seems like the body, it sort of is this connection to our soul. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
connection to our higher self because it just holds this innate intelligence in it. And it's not really rational. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make so much sense to the logical, rational side of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yet there's all this information there, and there's a relationship we can cultivate, and just, yeah, that repetition seems important.
Yeah. And it's even though I come from body practices like meditation, like dance and yoga, it's still taken me a long time to really fully embody and get into my body. And certainly the body has so much information for us. It's absolutely amazing, and it does have so much wisdom. And when when I've had discomfort in my body, I try to remember as much as I can. The body knows what it's doing. The body knows what it's doing. So yeah, I'm so glad you brought up that point. Just to be able to go, well, what is it? What is it trying to tell me? What's this message here for me?
Hmm.
Because it does definitely bypass the mind, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes the mind can be like, well, why do I, this pain's coming back again? Oh my God, and I just want it to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was experiencing something with that lately in my sacrum, back in my sacrum, and just listening to that, being going into it and being like, oh, okay, whoa. And it's like, it's talking, and I'm like, okay, it's talking and sensation and pain or whatever it is. But the more I would go into that and feel that and go through the emotion,
Ah.
then it's dissipating. But
Mm.
every time I wanted it to just go away, it was like, well, what relationship am I really cultivating with
Right.
that? If I'm
Right.
just wanting it to go away, that's probably more of my issue than the pain is.
Right. Yeah. That's such a great point. Such a great point, because that's where I think so many of us can get stuck is, oh, I got this pain, I got this situation, I just want it to go away. But really, the path, and it's also the meditative path too, is uh, when you're facing anything, just to be able to be with it, to give it space, to listen to it instead of try to push it away. I mean, certainly there's many spiritual teachers that talk about it, and Matt Kahn is a good example of how he talks about embracing all the emotions, and really being able to go through them, and listen to them and give them the attention that they need instead of just kind of push it away.
Yeah, he's amazing. I watched him talk, and reading a little bit. He speaks very simply, and I feel like it's so easy to connect to how he languages things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of his books, where it's his quote, "Whatever arises, love
Love
that."
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Uh-huh.
It works. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever arises, if you're like, fuck that, or whatever, I don't want that, then yeah. So it's like, well, what is love? I mean, I think it's kind of like this attention and awareness we just bring to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm open to this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here. There's like a presence,
Right. A
perhaps.
presence. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the I Rest Yoga Nidra that I do too. And it's just really about, well, going back to that word, allowing, uh, just the practice of allowing whatever shows up, whether that be, a really crazy mind pattern that's going on, or, challenging emotions, or, physical, back to the physicality, physical sensations or whatever, it's just the practice of being with it in a way and giving it space, so that hopefully when it comes up in your regular life, that there's more space for that, whatever that is.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's almost like with the mind too. You almost have like the same thing, but it's, instead of a sensation or an emotion, it's this thought. And then it's like, oh, okay, that thought's back, and maybe that's not the thought I want to be running. Um, there's so many ways. Well, I'm curious how you bring in um, this shamanic ritualistic element, and please feel free to rephrase that how you
Mm-hmm.
will. But maybe my question is around how you feel ritual, ceremony, community plays into some of this work.
Yeah, well, one of the elders I've worked with for years, one of his major missions is to create community and to create a sense of belonging between people. And I feel like that's, I mean, look at our society and how not interconnected we are, and how segregated families are. I mean, certainly even my family, we live in different places. And so this idea of community and coming together and creating a sense of belonging that somehow we lost along the way of this society at this time. And I feel like so many of the shamanic practices are all about creating community and noticing the support of nature and noticing the support of each other. And so that's I feel like it's a major healing modality. And then even when I work with individuals, the sense of the sense of community is a little bit different in that case, but it really often will boil down to a sense of acceptance and going back to that place of allowing of what's going on. So I don't know if that I totally answered your question. Can you restate it again?
Yeah, I think we're sort of dancing around this idea of ritual and community and ceremony, and what that might mean in terms of this overarching topic of self-mastery and spirituality. So yeah, I think you touched on pieces and elements of it, and I think that the word that's standing out for me is belonging at this point. I think what was dawning on me while you were talking was a piece around these access points. And there's these access points really in all these relationships we have in life. And we can go stare at the inner knee or the hamstring or whatever. Or, we can be in a meditative state, and yet, there's a point where the inner work and the inner focus becomes outer. And I think there's that piece with yoga around, maybe it's the element of dharma or this service where once you've practiced a greater embodiment in the mind, body, emotional, spiritual sense, then where does that lead into community?
Yes. Great questions. And I think that there is a time and a place where it has to be about the me. It has to be about, working through stuff that maybe we stuffed. And if you're on any kind of path of growth or evolution, in the becoming kind of place, that is going to probably things will continue to show up. And at some point, I feel like, especially right now, that we need to move from the me to the we. And so that's what I'm starting to see in working with people, both, in yoga and meditation and working in ceremony space, is that we are becoming strong enough and worked through enough of the fragmented pieces of ourselves that we can now move into the we. And we can move into the we by, for example, more recently I worked with a group, and part of what we decided to do as a group was to put out, during the ceremony, put out prayers to specific people and to the collective. And that felt really, really great. And I feel like that's where we need to go as a society. And certainly, again, there's a time and place for holding all those fragmented individual pieces, and then a time and place where we can move into the we, and not just in terms of work, but also in celebration, and going back into possibilities of what this greater we can create. right now.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Kind of makes me feel like, wow, when it's just the me, perhaps there's an element of we because you have those fragmented pieces and it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not just me, there's all these parts. And
Right.
once you gather them up and there's this
Yeah.
kind of integration process of that,
Yeah.
the we, maybe the fragmented pieces become people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the community element, yeah, it's just vital. I think in a lot of ways this idea of flipping competition to collaboration is just really powerful. Because why
Yes.
why are we, I mean, there's a level
Yes.
of competition that makes perhaps some sense, but I mean, there's so much that people can offer.
Mm-hmm.
Why not support one another in
Mm-hmm.
that? And if people are potentially competitors, what if they were collaborators? Like, how much
Right.
more abundance could you share? And if you
Right.
if you really had the abundance over this person anyways, would it be that fun without them?
No,
Probably not.
right, right. Yeah, that, and I'm so glad you spoke to that because it's really, I've been really feeling into that and starting to look at ways of creating community events that will bring in everybody's, actually I'm getting chills I'm talking about it, bring in everybody's uniqueness so that each person maybe in a community event brings forth something. And it could be, it could be an evening, it could be, like a week long of retreat or something like that. I'm not quite sure about
Mm.
how to, about the practicalities of that, but there's a real excitement and interest in oh, let's see, let's do some kind of community event, and let's have Keenan do half-hour readings about what's up for this person at this time, and let's have so and so do this, and let's have so and so do that, and let's have so and so do that, so that we all share our gifts with each other in a setting. And it's interesting because I'm sure you're probably aware of the gene keys. I just looked up recently my gene key purpose, what I'm here to do, and part of it is creating, instead of working with group dynamics, but instead of hierarchy, it's around the word that was created by the person who came through the gene keys came through was I think it's synarchy,
Mm.
which is the synergistic. Bringing in the synergistic qualities of everybody and their strengths,
Mm.
and then also the part of my purpose is also helping people move through times of great transition, something like that.
Mm.
And so I thought, oh, that's what I'm doing already. I'm glad that's that's in some kind of chart somewhere. But
Isn't it so amazing to feel activated in those keys?
mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because it's like, well, how do you know it's true? And it's the same really concept as astrology with this birth info. And I like to equate that, I guess, like what is true? What's true in these different aspects of the chart? Well, with the gene keys, for example, like, and maybe I might just ask you, like, how do you know it's true? Because you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it. And I look at what I've been doing, and it's pretty close to what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. There's something
There's
going on.
yeah,
Usually the shadow piece is like, whoa, been there.
yeah,
And so, because we all
yeah,
experience that element of it.
yes, yes,
I think
yes.
I think he talks about collectively we're not
Mm-hmm.
quite in the acidic level where like we're working on our gifts and we're
Mm.
working on owning the shadow and
Working on owning the shadow. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
without that it's difficult to move into that acidic
yeah, yeah.
expression, which
Mm-hmm.
for those that don't know, siddhi or acidic is essentially the frequency of the divine is what
Mm-hmm.
how I understand
Mm-hmm.
how he puts it.
Yeah, the most kind of enlightened manifestation of who you are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The city. Mm-hmm. Siddhi, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So there's some really beautiful tools that you've shared, maybe bringing it back to um, this thing that you usually, I think you've shared a few times in groups where it's like the shamanic tools of sound,
Ah, yes,
light, and I
yes.
feel like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just sharing that piece maybe for listeners would be really
yeah.
powerful and maybe give them a gateway or like a kind of peer into some
Mm,
of the work you're doing with individuals, groups.
yeah. So, in some shamanic traditions, there are four tools that we have, and it is sound, breath, light, and intention. And so we can use those for tools, and they seem maybe not very let's see, 3D reality, but actually they are quite powerful tools that we have access to just from ourselves. We don't have, there's nothing outside of ourselves that we need to access that. So in other words, we can use, there's a particular shamanic tool. It's such a simple one that I often like to start when I work with people. Is just this understanding what where your address is in the universe. So it is, and it's just about presence and being here. And it's using a bright electric blue line of energy that's vertical, that is horizontal, and then there's one coming in front of you as far as you can possibly imagine, through your heart and all the way behind you. So there's a line all the way through the center, and from the sky to the earth, and all the way from the left to the right, crossing the intersection of the heart, and then forward in front of you as far as you can imagine, and all the way behind your heart. And it's just, and you basically just say, here, now I am here. And it's you're using a visualization of bright electric blue light, and you're using the power of your voice and sound to state that, and you're using your intention. So you've got those three things. Maybe you're using the four things too, but you're using a number of those elements as you do that very, very simple exercise. And it's so simple, but it's quite powerful.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Because there's usually some visualization techniques that ground you into the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and that piece of doing the third element of the z-axis
Mm-hmm.
combined with the horizontal vertical is like, whoa, it just
Mm-hmm.
presence. Yeah. So if you're feeling mixed up and you're like, whoa, the world's turning like crazy and I need some grounding, I find that is.
Yeah, and certainly,
thanks for sharing that.
certainly I've been getting my toolbox out every morning these days.
Yeah. More needed than usual, I guess.
Yeah. And I really do want to just speak to that for a moment, that, it is, these times can be so intense for so many reasons. And, just that whatever tools that you have access to in terms of continuing to maintain a connection to source or spirit or your higher self, and grounding I think are vital during these times.
Yeah, it can be so simple, and we want to figure out so much just to bring it back to this presence with the moment. And I feel like that's, I think that's what you are able to offer well in the world because of your experience. I think as experience goes on, it seems the things that seem so complicated boil down to something simple in a package. And maybe there's complexity within, but we don't always need to go there.
I mean, and we are so blessed right now, because we do have so much access to so many amazing modalities. From we have the old good old standards, ancient ones of yoga and meditation, and then there's the shamanic practices. There's working with, there's astrology, and there's human design, and there is Reiki and massage, and there are, so many ways that we can really navigate our way through these times. There's just incredible amount of ways that we can do that, and we're so blessed to be able to. It's just a matter of taking even a few minutes every morning to touch in on those places.
Yeah, it seems pretty poignant or relevant that there's a Pisces full moon right now, and we're talking about all this connection pathways to spirit and everything, because that's what Pisces is to me, really, this like non-dual state of consciousness, this connection to oneness and all that is. And there's to me, a Pisces full moon would really be about finding ways of connecting to that, and finding the pathways and enjoying them, connecting deeply emotionally, perhaps, to a sense of spirit, to the larger energy weaving through everything. And I think another piece that came up with you talking was this part of, oh wow, I'm getting chills about the groups. And that's kind of to bring it full circle with like following the body. I mean, that's something that happens to me when I have an idea, or maybe I'm connecting in and I'm trying to create something new, or find, create something new, find a new pathway to what it is that I'm desiring, wanting to create in the world. And that the chills, the sensation up the spine, that's one that always gets me.
Mm-hmm.
So following that for whatever it is for you, I think it's really a great
Yeah,
piece.
yeah. And I just want to say one other thing about that is that, as more energy, as I start to maybe attune myself more and feel more energy, that uh, it's helpful to continue to remember that everything that we're experiencing, it's not to identify with it, and it's not mine. It's really spirit moving through us, and it's the being blessed that spirit is moving through us in a particular way, and that just the kind of like the overarching thing to always keep in upfront in my consciousness and upfront in our consciousness is that we are all spirit, we are all interconnected, we are all divine, everything is divine, and so am I. Everything in this energy, the energy that moves through us, the wisdom that moves through us, the love, the compassion, all these things that move through us, and even on the other side of the spectrum, even the hate, and even the challenge. I mean, everything that moves through us it's not to call our own. It is the way the divine is moving through us to have us experience life in a particular way, and to not claim it as ours, not to identify with that. Is an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that piece.
Yeah.
It's that one was a big aha for me. At least I'm still constantly learning, but there's a part of identifying with certain elements of my experience that I had been you just feel caught in that. It's like who I am, and there's this heaviness with claiming certain things that are just running through us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a great reminder for me and probably lots of people.
Yeah. Well, I am saying it because I need to remember it as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how it works.
yeah, it's always
Yeah.
that sacred mirror.
Yeah.
Um, so as we wrap up, perhaps, I guess I'm just kind of wondering about maybe um, what's on the horizon for you, what you're working on or focusing on, and yeah, let's just go with that for now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an interesting that you brought that up, because uh, I have decided to mostly clear, not the whole month of September, but to allow my part of what I'm feeling like is needing to happen is my nervous system needs to come to a particular kind of equilibrium, because there's been a lot of energy moving through it, and so to give myself time and space for that process, whatever that means. And but I'm kind of feeling on the horizon, there's been things that have been on the back burner for a long time, waiting for maybe a more exact form of how I show up in the world. Uh, but for example, I'm feeling like, oh, it's time to put together a website that's updated, things like that.
Hmm.
And so I'm feeling like those two things, and also just continually listening to two things: listening to the inspiration as it shows up, and then making the move to uh, to put it into play.
Mm.
So often what'll happen is there'll be just an inspired movement to do something, and then a creation will unfold because of that. In the 3D world, that's not always practical because you need to have things out, a few months, but at least, but that's just that's pretty much how I've been operating. So, so there's that aspect of it. And yet at the same time, um, I have a tendency to want to wait till things are kind of more in place to step forward. So I'm feeling like I need to just to bite the bullet and to put something out there in terms of just my presence in terms of the website of updating that, and just to listen to the inspiration as it shows up and follow it. And then also one day a couple weeks ago, I just asked the question of how can I be of service, and I got a call from an old client, and she wanted to do some work together. And I thought, okay, well, you asked for it and here it shows up. So you say yes, you must say yes. So I'm also just paying attention to the requests and what shows up and following that.
Nice. Yeah.
But in terms of like a big grand plan, in terms of where I want to go and where I want to be, I don't have that at the moment. I'm feeling much more just opening up to what wants to show up, and opening up to what kind of inspirations come through.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that piece about the nervous system, especially. I mean, I think so many of us have these nervous systems that don't necessarily get a break. And there's been times where I'm like, I resist and rebel my phone. And those moments where we can really, even if it's just 24 hours, to just do a tech detox and just let the nervous system not be stimulated by blue light and all the information. I think that goes a long way. And it seems like you've been taking some nice trips into nature and getting that.
Yes,
and I
of
can
course.
feel that in your
Yeah.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally doing it. And of course, as soon as I do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would like some more
Yeah.
of that, please.
Totally. There's so
So,
much the earth has to offer.
yeah, yeah.
Is, I guess, that the last question I'm kind of feeling pulled to ask you, and then perhaps you can share a little bit about maybe how people can reach you and what your offerings are. Is this piece around your work, particularly around sitting with elders? And is there anything, I think I may have asked you this maybe a couple months ago, but is there anything that feels ripe for sharing or just passing along, as far as, because I feel like there's such an amazing body of wisdom that we don't typically get. We don't have quite the connection to the older folks.
Yeah.
And if there's something you can share around, sitting with some of the elders, I'd love to hear.
Oh yeah, that's it's funny. I just went to visit a dear friend in Crestone who turned 90. It's his 90th birthday party.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so, in terms of elders, I don't know if you're talking specifically about shamanic elders, or are you talking about like just elders in general?
Well, I suppose since you brought up both, we could, the question could be for both.
Yeah. I think that, that the just in general, the beauty of acknowledging our elders is think about the amount of years they've experienced that. For many of them, they have so much wisdom. And I'm even looking at my mother, who I can see how she's how she's changed in the last few decades, and how she's relaxed a little bit and has softened, and just seeing that process in her. And and for example, for this person I'm talking about, the 90th birthday, he is available, but he doesn't force himself on others, but he just quietly is available. And that's such a beautiful teaching in and of itself. Just simply being available and just seeing who comes, who shows up.
Yeah, like there's not much you really have to do
no
to impress me or prove anything. Right. It's just, we're just here. And
right.
Yeah.
There's no proving. And I'm fascinated by his relationship with death, and how he's very consciously stepping into knowing, moving into that process of dying. And so that's been a big teaching for me. In terms of the shamanic elders that I've worked with, one thing one of them has really shown me a world of possibility that I didn't see before working with him, and how we are really co-creating our experience and our reality. And others that I've worked with have shown me that that there is, I'm going to start with a very simple thing, that we have so much support around us, each one of us. We have not just the support of the earth and nature, but the support of, even if you're lonely, you have the support of for most of us are blessed enough to have a support of a house, and to have a support of food to eat, and then just to acknowledge that support, and then the support of the unseen support that we have, that I really do feel like we do have unseen support that is gently guiding us.
Totally.
And it's, if you don't have to necessarily believe that, but if we can choose to believe whatever we want, that would be an interesting belief to adopt if you haven't already, because just to be open to that. But not only that, I mean, the air that we breathe, just the sun that's, we wake up every morning and the sun is still doing its thing, and lucky for us, so even if you don't feel like you have a lot, and, certainly these times can be so very challenging for some, that, if we can at least acknowledge the things that we do have, and, the support around us, that is a big shamanic principle, I guess. Is just acknowledging and noticing and recognizing the support that we have, and that's a huge one.
Thank you for sharing that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we could use hearing that. Appreciation, gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging what's here, not necessarily looking to what isn't.
Yeah.
The sun has been a big one for me. Just, whoa, how much I can get from the sun. Just even if it's 15 minutes.
It's
amazing.
just
Taking it in, it's like, oh my God, it feels so good.
Yeah.
And if I miss that, actually, days that I miss that, I'm like, whoa, my mood's different.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just it's simple things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you might want to add to our conversation here before?
Oh, well, I'm trying to think of, in terms of, let's see, you asked me the last question, and see if I can add to that at all, about the elders.
Yeah, messages from the elders,
Yeah.
and just sharing maybe what you've, even if it's an experience of feeling, like the transmission from sitting with them.
So the transmission from sitting with them is that the generosity of spirit is as one of the transmissions, the availability, the non-pretentiousness, the just ordinary, down to earth, available, generous, sharing quality. The phrase, everything is divine and so am I, everything is sacred and so am I, those phrases come from some of the shamanic elders I've worked with. So those are always very, very, very good things to keep in mind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's been wonderful talking to you. It always is. We get to talk about the depth. I find that with my Scorpio friends, that I get to talk about all the things, transformation and and the deep parts of our experience. And just I really appreciate you, what you're doing in the community, and what you offer in the world, just your presence even. Thank you.
Thank you, Keenan. Yeah, it's really a pleasure and an honor, and it's so awesome to see you in your element.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been having fun with this. It's good.
Yeah.
I guess what I might ask is if you feel inclined to share something else about your offerings or how people might reach you? Do you want them to maybe
Yeah,
call you
yeah,
directly? We'll definitely have
yeah.
some links up for you as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
some links. People can reach me, via email or text or through my website. Um, and yeah, there's a number of modalities that I focus on, and the modalities range from, as mentioned before, yoga and meditation and breath work and self inquiry and shamanic ritual ceremony practices and also integration processes as well. So helping people move through some challenging times and helping them to take whatever information and insights they've gleaned and then take it into their daily life. And that's like hand holding, and that I enjoy being of support when I can for people like that.
Yeah, kind of where the rubber meets the road, where you have an insight, but then it's how do I really make this like more permanent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me because the experiences and um, different experiences are experiences, and really, what's important is how we embody it and how we live with it and how we make it a difference in our daily life. So
Yeah, when knowledge becomes wisdom, I guess.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, always a pleasure. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. I look forward to whatever's in the air for next time, and whatever we jump into, it'll be fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Ongoing. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
thanks so
welcome.
much. Yeah, thank you.